Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. I am Ron Luce, joined by the one, the only, Mr. Juice Man himself. Juice, we are talking about a Cubs winner tonight. Cubs win 8-7 in one of the craziest back and forth baseball games I've seen in a while that the Cubs have at least come out on top of. But it was a nice win tonight, dude. But before we jump into it, how are you doing?
Good, man. I feel like it's been a long time since I've been on here. Hasn't, but it's been a long time since we've won. So maybe it's felt that way that I haven't been on here happily, So, yeah, no, good for them to get out there and win. And let me just say I tweeted out tonight, I would build a baseball team with 26 Christopher Morels if I could. Kid's been unbelievable. It's fun to watch tonight. The way he hyped that ball club up, got him going, was a huge, feather in the cap to him, and it was a huge momentum switch to the whole game, I think, in a lot of ways. But yeah, man, it was fun. It was actually kind of fun to watch a baseball game that the Cubs were winning in a one-run game at the end. It seems like all these have been just one-run losses recently, and heartbreakers of the fashion of that too. But yeah, good to see them play good baseball and get a win.
Yeah, absolutely awesome to see them get a W tonight. And it was really a crazy back and forth game. Cubs take the early lead on the big Wilson Contreras home run. Brewers get it back on a bases loaded, clearing double. Tyrone Taylor, that dude's been an absolute pain in the ass this entire series against the Cubs. And then the Cubs get two to tie it, and then the Brewers take the lead on the 3-run bomb. Of course, it's Victor Caratini, because why wouldn't it be? But then 4 in the 6th, then the Brewers tie it, and then ultimately the Patrick Wisdom bomb in the 8th inning to effectively end the game, Juice. And it was a good one. And like Scott says here, baseball is better when the Cubs win, and I completely agree because, buddy, this was a good one tonight. Maybe not the greatest Justin Steele outing, threw a lot of pitches in just 5 innings, only gave up 3 runs. Not the greatest night maybe for Rowan Wick because of the Caratini home run. Blown save ultimately for Brandon Hughes. You hate to see it. But just like you said, Juice, just a resilient ball club tonight. You had Christopher Morel and that energy and Wilson Contreras and some of these guys that you really need to come through for this team right now, coming through and making plays. I'm telling you right now, dude, I know you are all hyped about Morel, as am I. Christopher Morel is like, he's giving us the same kind of energy and excitement when he plays baseball that like Javi Baez did, and that's why he was so beloved, right? Because everybody, you get the one crowd, right, that was always like, oh, Baez's numbers are actually not that good, and the underlying stats didn't favor him, but it was the El Mago plays that made him an exciting ball player. Morel's doing it with probably better underlying stats, but he's just being this absolute electric factory, whether it's in the field with the arm strength, whether it's with the power of the bat that we've seen a little bit this year, but just the dude gets on base. I said it on yesterday's show. He is literally the definition of the Moneyball gif. Because he gets on base, like that's what he does. Sets the record. Actually breaks Willie's record, ironically, to start a Cubs career in franchise history, longest on base streak. And then he extended his hitting streak tonight, too. Both are double-digit games. I mean, he has been such a splendid surprise for this team, Juice. And, I mean, let's just continue the Morel for Morel. He looks really good, dude.
Yeah, it's fun to sit and watch a young player come up and play with the attitude of a guy who's just happy to be there, but also have success. A lot of times you get those like guys who come up and they're the energy ball of energy, and they don't work the count. They don't do the little things. They throw to the wrong bases. But like this kid seems to do a lot of that. I've only had one gripe with him, and it was he threw in against the White Sox and missed the cutoff, man. Other than that, I mean, he's been above average in the baseball smarts, given that he's so young. I think to tie it in, you said all these things and all the success he's having. I think we forget how young he is. I mean, he's a really young kid that is learning, is trying to get at bats. I mean, the kid's been a Cub and in the Cub system since he was, 16?
Yeah.
So it's been a long process, and I think, it helps to have, guys like Willie who are there. And, I've listened to stories and the fact that he went up to Ross, after he's like, I'm going to be up there, sooner rather than later. And, it's good to see him, make right on his promises. And, you like to root for guys who, regardless of the score, give it all. I think it was like and I'm not throwing shade at Willie because it ended up all working out, but I mean, Willie trots out of the thinking that ball was fouled down the line there, ends up only with a double, maybe could have ended up with a triple, who knows. But like, that's something that on this team is very tough to teach. And as a big league ball player and somebody of Willie's stature has been there for a really long time, it's easy to get caught up in the nonchalantness of the game, right? That it's just 1 to 162, but this kid plays like he may never play again. And that's fun to watch. That's somebody to root for. And I think that's why Cub fans have more or less gravitated to him, his story, the way that he talks about his teammates, I think has been something that, has been a surprise to me, considering that, he hasn't been with the ball club very long, but he's already getting high marks from his teammates and how great of a teammate he is already. It's something that I hope is being instilled in the minor league system. We talk on this show all the time about player development, and we talked about Christopher Morel as maybe just an appetizer piece. Well, I hope that they're doing this down at the AAA level, the AA level, the high A, low A, all the way down into, the extended spring training, rosters that they put together down there. But it's interesting to think, like, I know not all the guys are going to be built like Christopher Morel. There's just, they're not going to be all personalities like that.
Right.
But the attitude that he plays with, where he plays like it's his last game, I hope every single Cub that comes up plays that way and understands that they're playing with house money. No matter when you come up, you may go back down. You may end up being back at AAA, AA, whatever. But play like you have nothing to lose. And I think that that's the theme for this year that Ross and the whole front office should definitely sell to these guys. And there's some guys on the roster that, like, I think it's been a long time since they've seen that. Think about it. A lot of those guys who are on the championship team, the roster was set a lot of times before spring training even hit. I mean, maybe they were fighting over 1 or 2 spots. Now, next year, when you go into spring training, there's a good possibility that between 15 to 16 of these spots are up for grabs. Who's to say that, a lot of these guys are just set in their ways for next year on the roster, call it what it is. There'll be a lot of guys who are competing for a job. And I think that that's why this is so fun. And I think that while it comes with its growing pains, like we've seen in the last couple days, it's still fun to hop on these shows and go, man, I've seen a lot of things in the last couple of days that make me feel comfortable about the future. And that's exactly what we've talked about. We turned the page. I think that was Friday. We did the show or Thursday where they had lost. And we did the show and we said, hey, listen, like this is a not a long-term thing, but this is the expectations for this year. It'd be nice if, they were in a playoff hunt. They may not be. And there's a good chance of that as we look at the standings right now. But with that said, just to see these guys come up, produce, have good at-bats, and set the tone as a young ball player in an older ball park with an older ball team. Let's face it, a lot of these guys have been there before who are on this team. But it's good to see him have success and be loved by his teammates. And I think that that's the biggest thing I'm taking from it. The fact that he has such high marks personality and character-wise that I'm hoping that this is something that they're prioritizing when they pick players.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see so many teams, right, where like, again, clubhouse chemistry matters. And guys like that only help said chemistry in the clubhouse and support everybody and things like that. And are as well liked as him too, which you always love to see. But yeah, it's really easy to root for a guy who's playing well and is just a likable guy. But he's been absolutely dynamic in that leadoff spot. Like truly is giving this team that spark at the top of the lineup. Willie has another great night tonight, obviously. Wisdom comes through with a couple of big hits. Quite a few Cubs got in on the action. Oddly, I should say. The only two Cubs to get into the lineup tonight, really at any point without a hit, other than Ortega, because he never actually registered an at-bat, were Horner and Rivas. Otherwise, every other Cub that played tonight got a base hit. Like, this was a fun ball game. This was something to enjoy. It was good to see the offense show up, fight from behind. I think that's the biggest thing I take away from tonight's game is, they battled adversity, and you got to beat good teams by battling adversity. And technically, Game 2 of yesterday's doubleheader was a continuation of that first series of the season that they now have technically split. You have technically are split right now with the Brewers through 2 games in this series. Who's to say they can't get a W tomorrow? Who's to say? Right now, pitcher for Milwaukee, he's our favorite guy they go against. It's TBD. Like, it's not going to be one of the big guns. We knew that coming into this series, that the biggest name we were going to see in this Brewers rotation was Lauer. It was going to be Eric Lauer the whole way, and they beat him up a little bit tonight. Otherwise, you aren't seeing Burns. He pitched on Sunday, and the other two, Woodruff and Peralta, are both on the IL. So it's just, tonight is the type of win, Juice, that this team needs to take that energy and that kind of almost attitude, I guess, that they had tonight, right? You come back, you fight into the game. You're down, you're up, you're tied, and then you eventually get up again right before you're able to close this thing out. Take that energy that this team built battling adversity and apply it to tomorrow's game, because you could get a huge victory tomorrow at Wrigley, and then you ride that momentum into 5-game set with the Cardinals in 4 days. Like, yes, are we looking a little ahead? Maybe. But again, these are those type of wins too that, Juice, to your point when it comes to talking about these young guys, they learn. You're learning from these moments like tonight, right? Like Nico struggled. Nico was 0 for 5 after a 3-hit game yesterday. How does he respond tomorrow, right? That's a growing moment for a guy like Nico Horner, who has not yet played a full MLB season worth of games in his career. You've got the same thing arguably for Christopher Morel, right? How do you battle adversity? Technically, only 1 for 4 tonight, but guess what? Still on the base paths, creating havoc because of his ability and his athleticism to move around the base paths, right? Wisdom coming through. Good to see Madrigal come off the IL, gets a hit, scores a run tonight. That's good. That's good for the confidence. That's good to get the young guys going. Mind you, he's also just 25 years old, super young still. This is that type of game that this team can learn from, and I absolutely love to see. But Juice, I want to talk a little bit just quickly about the pitching, though, because Steele, not terrible. The 3 earned runs, certainly not ideal, but only 3 hits. The 4 walks is but 6 strikeouts, just threw a lot of pitches, 102 pitches in just 5 innings. But again, Rowan Wick really gets kind of beat up a little bit tonight. Hughes gets beat up a little bit, ultimately blows the save, but they Givens and Robertson, 2 1/3 innings between the two of them to lock down at the end. It's really, really, really nice to see Givens, I feel like, who's maybe struggled a little bit lately, return to form. And then, Juice, to your point, David Robertson's trade value looked okay after tonight.
Yeah, and after a couple in a row there from him that were shaky, to say the least, it was good to see him lock it down tonight. But yeah, I love Justin Steele. I think he's a great talent. But I tweeted it out the other day. I want Norris DFA'd. I want Steele in the bullpen, and I want Caleb Killian to get his chance, because I think it's just time. I do. And there may be a time down the line during the season where Steele gets more starts and he can get a second chance here. But I desperately want to see the ability of him in the bullpen when he has Keegan Thompson there as well. And it's only because Joey and I sat on the show, a couple months ago and said, what if you had a lefty Keegan Thompson out there and Keegan as well? You know what I'm saying? If you had Steele and Thompson to eat up innings out there, what would it look like? And what would you need for the future? You're going to have Cody Hoyer who comes off the IL next year and maybe gets his chance to be the closer for the future. I think that they're going to go out and get a chance for guys like Braylon Marquez that maybe he can't start anymore, but maybe he's a closer, or like we've talked about, or maybe he's, a guy down in the bullpen. But I just think that you set a dangerous precedent when you don't call up guys like Caleb Killian, who have done so well at each level and kind of prove to you that it's time. And the longer he waits, the longer you start to think like this is just kind of getting ridiculous. He's earned it, So I don't want to say that Steele can't come back and pitch out of the rotation. I certainly think that if he figures a few things out, it'll be fine. He needs to obviously throw more strikes. I think that would be step one into this. But the problem is too, it seems like, and they were talking about on the telecast tonight, when he gets him 0-2, he doesn't really have like that second, third getaway, get him out pitch. And I feel like his velocity is down since becoming a starter because he has to save some stuff. He has to navigate through 5 or 6 innings opposed to knowing he's got to go 3 and let's just, let's empty the tank. You know what I mean? Yeah. I feel like his stuff just plays so much better when you only see him one time through the order. And I'm sure there's stats on this, and I could be completely wrong on it, but it's just from the eye and what I've seen. And it seems like that second time through, it's a struggle. And for a lot of the reasons, we saw the same thing with Keegan, too. I know Keegan had a great start against the White Sox and a spot start recently, but Keegan, too. Like, his stuff plays better the first time around. That's every pitcher, but especially these guys who, don't have those extra pitches to throw. It becomes a problem when you're a starter and you only have, 1 or 2 that you can trust. So that's what I want. And I think that it's time for Killian. I really do. I don't think that there's anything else other than, the fact that he's down to AAA, just taking extra starts. He could continue his growth here under Tommy Hadvey and probably be better off. I think he probably learns more by sitting in that bullpen or sitting in that dugout with guys like Kyle Hendricks and Marcus Stroman, opposed to guys down there who they're not challenging him, in my opinion. I don't think he's learning much more than, what his stuff can do. That's it. But he could do that here. And I think that it's just time. And that's why, like I sit and I talk about the pitching. And yeah, tonight was good in a lot of ways, but the bullpen and I think they would win more games. I really do. I think they would win more games if they had him in the pen. I think that and as baseball continues to go, we've talked about this on the show, it becomes more and more valuable to have those 3-inning guys. So I think I'm ready for Killian. I didn't think I would say it. I thought that he would maybe be a late, maybe early September type guy, get a couple starts before, obviously everything goes away. And maybe kind of squeeze out some more time for him by, bringing him up during September so he gets a few more starts. But I look at his stat lines each and every time he goes out there and pitches, and it's time. I don't see anything else that holds him back other than the fact that maybe the Cubs have promised more starts to Steele. And that's fine. I get it. But you got to make room at this point. And you have so many guys who are hurt. Miley's back on the DL. Smiley as well hurt. So now's the time to give him a chance and to move things around if you feel comfortable. Or since you have so many guys that are out, just pencil them in for a start soon just to get you through. But it would be interesting to see, when they actually, because I'm sure Jed and company have an idea of when they want to bring him up. It'd be interesting to see their timeline for him. And if they actually truly think that he's getting better instruction down there or learning more at the AAA level than he would under Tommy Hadvey. And if that's the case, I don't feel too comfortable about that. And I don't think that that's true either anyway. So, yeah, with that said, that's what I want to happen with the roster. But, Steele fought it today, only giving up 3 and kind of struggling with his command, I think is kind of a blessing to come out of that start. But yeah, I think that all things considered, I think it's time to give the young kid a try.
Yeah, and I think just back to what you said about Steele, right? We saw it a lot last year when he was still working out of the bullpen. Is his stuff he can gas it a little more, right? Like 94 all of a sudden becomes 97, 98 on the fastball. Maybe he's not throwing all 4 pitches either if he's coming out of the pen. Maybe he's just throwing his slider and his fastball and then maybe working in a changeup or something or a third pitch of some sort every once in a blue moon. But that plays in that role that you're talking about there, Juice, with that kind of, guy that can give you multiple innings out of the pen, does it maybe more than once a week here and there, depending on how many pitches he throws. And maybe it is giving Keegan a place in the rotation. Maybe it's just keeping Keegan in the role that he's in and having 2 guys, like you said. And I think the Killian move is coming. And I know Scott here would love to see Killian on Saturday night against the Cardinals. That would be cool and tough. And it would be cool and tough. I just don't think it's happening as soon as we want it to. And I think it's a little bit of a bummer because I agree with you. I mean, he's done so much and so well at AAA level. He's got a 2.06 ERA. Absolutely ridiculous. And that was with him finally getting beat up in his latest start. But it's going to be interesting. I agree with you. I think the timeline is going to be the most fascinating part of his development because you do have a guy like Swarmer, who I think has at least earned another start in the rotation for now, especially with all the injuries. I think we will see Killian at some point. I really do. And I think it's going to be sooner than later. I don't think we're going to be waiting until the end of July to see Killian. I really don't. I think we'll see him a couple of times. I think we might see him 2, maybe 3 starts before the trade deadline. Maybe with the first one coming in like late June, I could see that happening. Maybe if they have a tough run of the schedule or something, and guys are a little beat up, maybe they do that at that point. But it's really going to be fun to see him both in the near term and in the long term, in sense of, him growing, right? Like that's the long term outlook. But then who knows? Maybe him coupled with Justin Steele and Keegan Thompson in the pen and some of these other guys, all of a sudden, like you said, Juice, maybe they do start winning more ball games. Who knows? But it will certainly be interesting to see. Juice, do you have any quick and final thoughts here before we go ahead? We'll enjoy this win. Don't get me wrong. My head's going on the pillow. Very, very happy tonight. But any thoughts before we look ahead to what is technically the rubber match of what would have been a traditional 3-game series here with the Brewer crew?
No, not as much as I thought I would. All things considered, I think it's just good for them to hit the sack tonight with a win. I think that this team kind of suffered, some snake bitten opportunities in the last couple, and it's just good to see them shake that off. And they could have, like you said, they could have folded up easily 2 or 3 times throughout this ball game and gave it back away. But no, they kept fighting, and I think that that's another testament to David Ross and his leadership, being able to get these guys focused and focusing on the next game, forgetting about the last ones that, didn't go your way and thinking, hey, there's still 5 innings left in this ball game. There's still 4 innings left in this ball game. Let's figure out a way to win this, because like I said earlier on the show, they're playing with house money now. There's no reason not to go out there and try to put on a show each night. There's no reason to. A lot of these guys, they're looking for jobs. Go out there and perform, and it's games like tonight that show some true grit and some true balls. And that's as a Cub fan, I think that that's something they can keep building on and keep building on it. Go out tomorrow and go, all right, now let's win 2 in a row here, and then you have your big time rival coming in at the end of this series. For a nice long 5-gamer that you're hoping to take most of them to get back in this thing. If that's what they truly believe in that locker room, that's what's going to have to happen. You're going to have to win tomorrow, and then you're going to have to take 3 or 4 of these against the Cardinals as well. Hopefully 4. And that's just my thoughts for this last run of here. This is a good game for the Cubs.
Yep, I agree with you. I think it's, like you said, something to build on and just a learning opportunity for these guys. Learn how to win, learn how to fight adversity, learn how to come back in these type of games. And Joey Ricotta, our boy here, says grit and ball sounds like a southern seafood. You know what? And maybe Juice, maybe that's kind of the mantra this team needs, besides it
Yep, little
sounding like the
side of
seafood was.
huevos.
Yeah, like you need to, like you said, you need to show up and show out sometimes. You gotta show, hey, this was a ballsy win for this team to fight back the way they did on multiple occasions. There were no fake rallies tonight. They were real rallies tonight, and that was nice to see. So I agree with you there, man. Just a well-needed win for this ball club going into tomorrow. And speaking of tomorrow, Juice, the Cubs are back at it at beautiful Wrigley Field on Wednesday, June 1st. It's hard to believe it is already June 1st, but it will be Cubs and Brewers at 7:05 local time here in Chicago. If you're in the Milwaukee market, you listen to the game WTMJ 620 in Valley Sports, Wisconsin, and then 670 the score WRTO 1200 Marquee Sports Network here in the Chicagoland market. It will be, as I mentioned earlier, TBD on the mound for the Brewers. It won't be one of the big guns, as we already know those guys are on the IL or have already pitched before this series, so won't have to deal with the three-headed monster that is Woodruff, Burns, or Peralta. But it will be the professor, Kyle Hendricks, on the mound tomorrow, 2-5 on the year, 5.20 ERA and only 36 Ks. But Juice, when you look at his career numbers against this Brewers team, guys that are active, really outside of Colton Wong, guys with sizable plate appearance numbers against him haven't necessarily thrived. Some guys have done better than others, but some of their big guns really haven't been able to hit Kyle all that much. This feels like a perfect opportunity for a get right start for Kyle. But I'll turn it over to you, my friend, for your thoughts on tomorrow's game as a little bit of a sneak preview.
Yeah, this would be the time for Kyle to come out and show why he's the ace of the staff, right? Come out, win them a series that they desperately need them to do. Be nice to see the Cubs, get up early and keep that lead and win a boring ball game. Be nice, right? It's been so long since me and you have hopped on one of these and had that, boring, 6-0, 7-0, 7-1, win that you knew it was in the bag from the fourth inning, so yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Like you said, I well aware of all those splits too for the Milwaukee Brewers hitters against the of Kyle Hendricks. But with that said, man, it's not been the same Kyle that we've seen over the course of his career. I'm hoping that he's able to, like you said, bounce back. Hopefully, they get an early lead, and then they just hold it. That's the case. That's how this team has to win. They got to lean on their starting pitching for right now, as the bullpen's been kind of shaky over the last couple games. So let's hopefully get a long stretch into Kyle going maybe 6 or 7 innings. That way it could set up for a full boat for the 5-game set against the Cardinals too, that you kind of desperately need to win. Be really nice for him to have a nice start tomorrow, build on it, and then they go with a rested bullpen and some momentum from a win going into your rival, which, as you know, those Cardinal games are always close, emotional, and it comes down to, a base hit here, a break here to, win those games. So, yeah, it's going to be an emotional kind of series for them, 5-game set. But don't look ahead. Make sure that you're winning these, in the moment, especially against a team that's winning the division. Because, like we said, if you're going to get back in this race, which, hey man, we've talked about this. I think it's development year, but you're still, trying to sell that to your players. You're still trying to win baseball games, and an extra wild card. You're still trying to get back in this thing. I get it. You got to take care of business. And guys who have taken care of business in the past, that's Kyle Hendricks. And it's time for him to put the cape on. Sometimes you just have to have one guy that just goes, hey, we're not losing today. And I think Kyle could be that guy tomorrow. Hopefully that's the start we get. And we're talking 2 out of 3 tomorrow. And it'd be nice to, like we said, ride that momentum into the hated Cardinals series that I will be desperately watching every pitch. Sweating, I'll tell you that, because I hate St. Louis.
Oh yes, and we know that all too well, my friend. But yeah, well said, man. And I love Joey's comment here in the comment section. Can the real warm weather Kyle please stand up? And I'm glad he mentions weather because tomorrow. So for anybody that's been obviously around the Chicagoland area the last couple of days, it's been really nice. Touched 90. It's been in the 80s. It's been really warm. We have a little cold front coming through right now, Juice, as we speak, and it's only about 75 degrees out there right now. It's only going to be in the low 70s tomorrow. I say only. It's still going to be a beautiful night at Wrigley Field. But I'm wondering what the wind patterns will be. And I think that'll have a lot to do. I don't know if this cold front is going to blow the wind in on a June evening. Feels like it wouldn't, but you never know. That's going to be really key. And can Kyle look like he did in his last start against the Brewers, which we were actually in attendance for on opening day, Juice? And he looked really good. Replicate that, build on that start. And you know what? If the wind's blowing out, keep the ball down. This team likes to slug. That's the Brewers are one of the top 5 teams in home runs in baseball. So they're one that you got to keep the ball away from them to be able to slug. Just keep the ball down, get ground ball outs. I don't need 7, 8, 9 Ks from Hendricks tomorrow. I'd be happy with what he did in that Pirates 21-0 blowout where I think he only had 2 Ks in 7 innings. I'm all right with that because guess what? At the end of the day, if it's a 0 on the board for the other team, I don't give a damn how he gets the outs as long as he's getting said out. So I'm right there with you, man. Big start for Kyle tomorrow. Get the series win and take that momentum into the following series with the Cardinals this coming weekend. That would be just poetic justice for the Cubs as they continue their stretch here against the top teams in the NL Central. Well, Juice, before we get out of here, buddy, want to remind everybody Cubs on Tap, the official Cubs podcast of the On Tap Sports Network. Check out all of our great work at www.ontapsportsnet.com and at ontapsportsnet on social media. You can follow the pod-specific accounts here for us. We are at Cubbies on Tap. That's CUBBIES. Twitter and Instagram is where you can find us there. I am at Luce on Tap on Twitter. Juice is at Juice on Tap on the Bluebird app, and make sure to follow all the other great Cubs contributors here at Joey Knows Nothing, at Teddy Freddy 270, and anybody else that has contributed to Cubs on Tap. Bulls, Bears, Blackhawks, we got it all. And yes, Cubs fans, you know the drill. Send your Southside buddies over to our friends at Sox on Tap. Gambling, golf, other Chicago teams, you name it, we've got it. The On Tap Sports Network. Go ahead and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Juice, it is always a pleasure, my friend. A lovely 8-7 Cubs victory today. We hope they do it again tomorrow. Hopefully, I believe there's a good chance tomorrow's show might be you and Joey on the microphone, so highly encourage everybody to tune in for the Joey and Juice showdown here on the microphones. And, buddy, before we get out of here, let's do it like we only know how.
Fuck the Cardinals.
And let's go Cubbies.